in the Corner is an organization that started in 2017 after I lost my youngest son, Zachary, to suicide. So he was 16, almost 17. And he really had a short sort of public battle with mental illness. But from the time that he really had his first breakdown to the time that he took his life was about a 6-month period.
Welcome to another episode of the Bridging Divides podcast. I'm super excited to bring you our guest, Francine Sumner, here today. I am your host, Mitch Bates.
Co-host, Lindsay Taylor.
So we are super excited. So you have the foundation Kid in the Corner.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
We're going to go all over what they do, how they got started, what their mission is. Doing a little bit of research myself, and I love the mission. Lindsay was telling me about you. This is the first time we're meeting, so I'm really kind of excited. And so it's kind of
too.
It's a fun little thing for our viewers as well as me to kind of get to know you.
Yeah.
But again, just hearing about what you guys do, I've been really anxious to really dive into it.
Okay.
So, Kid in the Corner, tell us what that's about.
Okay, so Kid in the Corner is an organization that started in 2017 after I lost my youngest son, Zachary, to suicide. So he was 16, almost 17. And he really had a short sort of public battle with mental illness. But from the time that he really had his first breakdown to the time that he took his life was about a 6-month period.
Wow, that fast.
It was fast.
Similar timing for
Yep.
your boy as well.
Yeah.
It's like drinking from a fire hose. The whole thing is a blur.
Yeah.
And when it was over and we had some time to really process what happened, you try to sort of do that blame game, like what was the cause, what was the reason?
What could I have done different? You go through all
Yeah, who do I
the
blame? It was stigma. It was all about the stigma at every single turn, right?
Interesting.
Like he didn't speak up for months. His friends never reached out to him. Nobody at school really knew what to look for. We couldn't find resources, on and on and on. And it really became apparent that we need to do some work in shattering stigma, and we need to get to the youth, right? Because we know youth talk to youth before they talk to adults. And so that is our mission. Our mission is to shatter the stigma that surrounds mental illness and support the kid in the corner, whoever that may be.
Beautiful. I love the imagery there with Kid in the Corner, because I feel like we've all kind of felt that at some point.
That's right.
No matter how popular you are, no matter
right.
like how supportive your family is, I feel like we all kind of can have that at some point or the other.
And we all have, and we all will again.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the message, right? Is that mental illness, mental health, it's health, right? We have oral health, we have physical health, we have mental health.
Right.
So why are we not learning how to take care of that mental health and manage it? Right? I mean, when our regular health, gets
It's
bad,
a part of the same.
we go get help. We know we can't diagnose or cure ourselves, so we get help.
I love that you bring that up. So I do this thing sometimes in group where I say, okay, what do you do if you're thirsty? And they're like, drink. And I'm like, what do you do if you're hungry? Eat, right? And I'm like, what do you do if you're sick? And I'll get different answers like go to the doctor, take medicine, rest, so it's pretty quick responses on like we know what to do when we're sick. And I say, okay, what do you do if you're mentally not well? And it's always like crickets at first.
That's right.
It's not a quick response, like obviously meeting our basic needs, you know what you need to do. If we're sick, we know what to do. But when it comes to what do we do if we're mentally not well, it's not as easy for people to identify. What do I do?
Well,
So I love that you point that out.
Yeah, and I think that we know what to do when we have colds because we're not embarrassed to talk about it. Our family knows,
It's just a thing. It's like, oh, well, yeah, everybody, that happens to everybody.
Yep.
Like,
it's
no big
everybody.
deal.
And, right, like I know this kid, when they have a cold, in my house, this kid likes Gatorade and this kid likes orange juice. Like, I just know that.
Right.
But if we're not talking about what you need when you're mentally not well, how am I supposed to know? How are you supposed to know? And we can't drink from, we can't learn it all drinking from a fire hose,
Right.
like in that 6-month period when Zach was struggling.
It's like, oh crap, we need this all of a sudden right now.
Right now.
And it's like,
Yeah.
you haven't been preparing for that.
And you don't
Yeah.
know where to go. I haven't learned it. I'm like, wait a minute. I can't be the only parent going through this.
Right.
How
Not
come
at all.
no one's talked about it? How come?
That's
Not at all.
I mean, like, there's so many correlations
I
between
know.
your
Yeah.
story and hers. It's like,
Yeah.
you're obviously not the only one.
Well, and I like that you point out that going back to like being mentally unwell, what do you do? Well, everybody experiences that too, just like being sick. We
That's
all
right.
do. But again, that stigma of actually talking about it, that's what kind of gets in the way in that barrier. So it's something that we all experience. We all have mental health.
Right.
And it's just, where are you on the continuum with, are you feeling well mentally or are you not? Or where are you in between, right?
Yeah. And we're going to deal with it for the rest of our lives.
Oh,
We
yeah.
will all have sad and bad days for the
Right.
rest of our lives. And we'll all have days where we're not feeling so well physically for the rest of our lives. Some of us may get by with that. Some of us may develop cancer, right? Some of us may get by with sad and bad days. And some of us may really develop serious mental illness. But in either case, there's nothing to be ashamed or embarrassed about. It's about knowing how to get the help that we need to keep ourselves healthy.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
100%. I think so often we view it as a weakness. I'm going
Right.
through something
That's
difficult,
right.
and so it's this weakness that's behind it, and it's like that I think is where I think, like, for me personally, when I'm going through something, I isolate. Right.
Yep.
I don't want to hear anything. I
That's
don't want
right.
to see anybody. I don't want to talk about it. And so it's like this cycle, right, that prevents you from talking, whether it's shame or embarrassment
That's
or whatever
right.
it is. So I think one of the things that's so important is for our loved ones and our support team to recognize the signs
right.
of their loved one. We're like, something's off. I need to step in and instigate the conversation.
That's right.
Because so many times when you're in it, you're not seeking that.
Well,
that help.
exactly. And I feel like, for the people that are supporting their loved ones, in situations like that, they need to realize that it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
How do I have the conversation? How do I broach the subject? How do I let you know that maybe you're not ready to get help or talk about it, but I notice that you're not okay, and I just want you to know I'm here.
Love that.
And knowing that you're not alone in that. You're not the only parent going through that, because
That's
I have
right.
felt like that in my situation with my
Yes.
son. And you're not. The reality is you're not, but it's a matter of, how do I find those people that can relate to what I'm going through? And so that's not always easy either.
It's not.
And I know, and I want to go back to Kid in the Corner, but I also know that you got involved in Mental Health Matters Arizona. Is that what it's
Right.
called?
Yes.
And part of that
Yes.
goes into this resource part, right?
Right.
Of connecting community and trying to make it easier for people to get connected to that support.
Exactly.
Okay. So I want to talk about that too, because I think that's important to
Right.
what we're discussing.
So the mission, right, at Kid in the
Yeah.
Corner is to shatter the stigma, but there's 3 different ways that we do it, right?
Perfect. That was exactly what I was going to
Yeah.
ask. How do you
Yeah.
shatter
Right.
stigma?
So, and we're really mission tight. So the first pillar is to educate and spread awareness. And that's where our in-school programming comes in. We have what's called the Penny Pledge program. So the reason it's called the Penny Pledge,
Tell me about that.
Yeah. Penny
yeah,
Pledge. Yeah.
is Zachary was a coin collector. And so
You
we
have your
found
pennies.
thousands of pennies. And the
love
idea
that.
is that 1 penny alone, right, doesn't add up to much. And it's pretty lonely. It doesn't have a lot of value. But collectively, we can change the culture. We can change behaviors.
Oh, I love that.
Okay? So the pledge is 3 parts. And it's really basically what we've learned through this whole story. So the first part is being comfortable. We're pledging that we're comfortable to reach out to the kid in the corner. And what does that mean? What does it mean to reach out? What does it mean? Who is the kid in the corner? How do we notice the kid in the corner? And what do we say? So what are the languages that we can use? How can we start conversations without shame and embarrassment? The second part of the pledge is taking care of our own mental health. So knowing it's okay to not be okay, and that there's strength in asking for help, and creating a self-care plan. Who is our trusted adult?
Ooh,
What are
yeah.
the hotlines and resources? What are a couple of mindfulness techniques that we can use to get us out of that panic mode?
Beautiful.
And what is our self-love language? In Zachary's story, we talk about how Zach's dad, his self-love language was always physical activity. That's how he relieved stress in his life.
Yeah.
But for Zach, it was animals. And they'd never had the conversation.
Interesting.
And so, Zach's dad, in desperately trying to help him during this situation, was like, you need to go to the gym. I signed you up for the gym. If you go to the gym, you'll feel better. I'm telling you, go to the gym.
And he's like,
Zach's like, I don't want to go to the gym. Like, I just want to
help
walk
me.
dogs.
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
right.
And so had they had those conversations earlier, had Zach been able to advocate for what worked for him, for his dad being able to understand, okay, that is how he's relieving stress.
Right.
Just like the Gatorade orange juice thing, right?
Yeah.
So kids learn that, and then they learn the hotlines and resources, Teen Lifeline, how to use them, things like that. And then the third part is knowing what to do if somebody approaches you and says, I'm not okay. I'm feeling hopeless. I want to self-harm. Knowing what empathy really is,
Yeah.
understanding how you can really never tell somebody how to feel. You may not have experienced it, but their
Right.
feelings are valid. Knowing the difference between tattling and advocating, right? Tattling is to get somebody in
Right.
trouble, but
Right.
advocating is to get somebody help. It's always okay to get
At
somebody
the high
help.
school level, we hear snitch. I'm not going to snitch on them.
That's right.
There's
Snitches
a
get
difference,
stitches.
right?
That's exactly
There's
right.
a difference.
But
yeah.
advocating is different.
Right.
How would you feel? Oh my gosh, just to interject.
Yeah.
How would you feel if something happened and you had not?
That's right.
As opposed to,
That's
we
right.
just talked about that. What could I have done, et cetera, et cetera.
That's
But
right.
if you know that you have done everything that you could have,
can. Right, and you can't,
know.
we're not saying that it's your responsibility to save somebody. It's not
Right.
your
No.
responsibility to get them help, but it's your responsibility to take it as far as you can.
see something, say something
That's
type
right.
deal.
Go to your trusted adult, use Teen Lifeline or one of the other resources to find out how you can or what you should do.
Oh, that's interesting. See, I wouldn't have thought of that,
Yeah.
of calling a helpline.
That's right.
To say, I have a friend who's going through
Absolutely.
something, whether it's actually a friend or a friend, you're talking about yourself, I don't know, whatever, either way.
Absolutely.
But it's like, but that's a great resource to be able to then
Yes.
say, well, how do
Guide
I
you.
help that? Yeah, how do I help that
Right.
person?
And
through
and
that?
I think youth don't realize that they have different options and choices. Once they're on the path, they can use the hotline or the resource to
Yeah.
text anonymously about their friend, or they can go to their trusted adult at home or in school. But had we not have all these things laid out ahead of time, again, then you're like drinking from a fire hose.
Right. Right.
And so at the very end, they all get pennies with holes drilled in them. And after they go through the program and they have a workbook and they've done the activities and we've talked it all through, we all pledge together. We pledge to reach out to the kid in the corner, and we pledge to take care of our own mental health,
that.
and we pledge to be a safe and caring person that others can come to. And that is our educate and spread awareness resource. This pillar. The second pillar is to promote contagious kindness.
Oh, contagious kindness. I love that. That's so good. I want that on our
Yeah.
shirt.
That's
And
right.
Sorry, really quick with
Yeah,
the first
go
one.
ahead.
So the third phase or the third pillar is that I'm a safe person to come to.
That's right.
But the whole goal is helping then connect their friend to a trusted adult, right? Because I want to
Absolutely.
make it clear it's not the kids or the
Nope.
youth responsibility they're not their friend's therapist, or they're not
Nope.
the one that's going to ultimately help their friend through that struggle. It's an adult.
It's like where to pass the baton.
Awesome,
What's
yeah.
the next step?
Okay,
Because
yeah.
we know, right, that youth talk to youth before they talk to adults.
100%,
So when
yeah.
this comes to me, it's like a hot potato. I don't need to hold it.
Yes.
I have choices. I can bring it to this trusted adult. I can go to this resource. But this is how I get to the next step. This is how
love
I, right, exactly.
So it's teaching them how to be a friend that somebody can approach,
That's
or a
right.
caring person that somebody can approach, and then they have the tools to here's who can help you.
That's right.
This
That will-
hotline or this trusted
Yep.
adult, whoever that. So we teach. I was telling you when we were talking teen mental health first aid.
Yes.
To the juniors.
Yes.
That's good.
CUSD is just rolling that out to all the juniors. Chandler Unified School District. And that is one of the things we teach, is because we know exactly what you said. Youth
Yes.
go to youth first. They don't usually go to an adult when they're
That's
struggling
right.
with that. So it's all about how do I help connect this person to a trusted
and that's
adult.
really all it's about, right?
Yes.
Is that I don't have the wherewithal.
Yeah.
I don't have the knowledge, right, to be your therapist.
Right.
At 15 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do know that we can call Teen Lifeline together, or you can call Teen Lifeline, and I do know that we have a trusted adult that I have identified in my mind that also I know will take it to the next step.
Love it.
So you're not going to have
Love
a 15-year-old practicing medicine, right? It's like
No.
you see your
Right.
friend hurt, and it's like, okay, well, I know who to call, 911, and
Right.
ambulance
Right.
or whatever, et cetera, to get them the help that they
Exactly.
need.
But teaching them how to identify it
Exactly.
And then what to do with that.
And that's where you
Right.
come in.
Exactly.
So the second pillar.
Yeah, kindness.
Yep. So contagious
Yes.
kindness is so important because without kindness, none of it works, right? And we have to start with kindness to ourselves. So we have to be able to give ourselves grace. We have to know that when we aren't mentally well, we need to give ourselves the same grace as when we're not physically well. So we're not physically well. We're not making ourselves go to soccer practice. We're not, we're not doing all the things. We're taking it slow today, and we're letting ourselves rest and get better. And I know in a couple of days I'll feel better, and then I'll be on.
Yeah.
Same thing when I'm not mentally well. And if in a couple of days I'm not better, then I need to go get some help. But if I'm having a couple of sad or bad days, guess what? It is okay to say, you know what? I'm not up to going there. I'm not up to going to soccer practice today. I'm going to give myself some grace and be gentle on myself, just as I would if I were physically ill.
Yeah.
Love that.
And then being kind to others. So when we practice kindness, it's a natural serotonin boost, right?
Isn't that interesting? It's like to
Exactly.
when we help others
Yep.
feel better,
That's
it makes
right.
us feel better.
So
Yep.
we do
Beautiful.
random kindness things. Like the big one coming up is called Zac Packs, where we take, we're filling about 750 bags for people suffering from homelessness. And then we take them and deliver them out to the community on our own, right? We hand them to people we see outside.
Beautiful.
With sunglasses, we have eye protection and all kinds of things. And it's that feeling of, I can help somebody else. When I help somebody else feel better, I feel better too.
Yes.
So we do a lot of kindness activities throughout the year. And then the third pillar is the one that we were talking about. So connecting the community to resources. This is where I really didn't know how to get on the path at all when Zach was struggling. In the end, he wound up seeing 4 different psychiatric providers in a 6-month period. He was misdiagnosed on the wrong medication, took his life in a very manic moment.
So, and it's that moment of making the decision from I'm going to do this to the actual
That's
act.
right.
That
That's
we need
right.
to lengthen that out so that you can get the help that you need.
And making sure that he has a proper diagnosis
Right.
and
yeah,
is
that's
on the
big time.
proper medication. The medication he was on wound up being increased, which spiked the manic episode.
Ouch.
And I felt it was really important to be able, we really have great resources here in Arizona. We
Right.
do.
Yeah.
I mean, we really do. And so how do we connect to the community at large? People who think like, I don't know, my kids don't need that, or I don't need to know that,
It'll never happen to me.
right. Or people who want to know, but they don't know how to find out.
Yeah.
That was
So-
me. Honestly, that's the whole reason why we have the Bridging Divides podcast,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
Bridging Divides, right?
Right.
To connect people to the research. That's how I found Lindsay, and that's
Yeah.
why we brought her on as a co-host, because it's like our visions were like so aligned,
Right.
Which is why we have people like you,
Which is, right,
who have shared
amazing.
that same thing. Yeah,
Because, again, I can't change my story, but hopefully we can change other stories. So we started a coalition called Mental Health Matters Arizona.
love that.
Started it because I really wanted to host a conference where it was free to the community at large. Anybody who had anything to do with youth, whether it be coaches or teachers or parents or whoever,
Yeah.
to be able to come to a conference on a Saturday free of charge and have all the resources available that support youth, mental health, LGBTQ, substance use, eating disorders.
Anything having to do with
Anything
mental
having to do with youth mental health. And I realized I couldn't do it alone. There's no one organization that can really make this happen. And so we started a coalition with other agencies.
Beautiful.
There's about 6 of us now. And we put on a conference last September. It was our first annual, called Mental Health Matters Arizona. And there were about 40 resources around each of those 4 pillars for anybody to go to, talk to. We then had a wonderful keynote speaker, and then we had 4 sets of breakout sessions along each pillar, right? So we had 2 breakouts for mental health, 2 for substance use, 2 for eating disorders, 2 for LGBTQ.
Got it.
And it was all about how do I shatter stigma? How do I talk to youth in my life about these topics? What are some conversations? What are things I should know about? What are the programming that's available here in Arizona to help these youth? And then we all came back together and had a panel discussion with all the crisis lines. So what
Amazing.
are the crisis lines? How do we use the crisis lines? So we're preparing for our second conference now. It will be along the
Awesome.
same pillars. I believe we're going to start off with a youth panel.
Oh, see, that would be amazing. I would love that.
We
Do you
just-
guys think that would be good? Let us know in
Yes.
the comments.
We just hosted an event called, we showed a film called Not Alone,
Yeah.
which is done by all youth, and we hosted our own youth panel.
Awesome.
And what we learned just by being silent and listening to the youth themselves was so powerful that I really feel like we need to start the conference with that.
Set the tone.
So we've talked about that in previous podcasts, that oftentimes we leave youth out of these
right.
conversations. And I think they're the most valuable and important piece of this conversation. And we laugh at ourselves saying, look, here we are without youth in the conversation. But no, but we've, one of our goals too here is to bring youth on the podcast as well.
Love it.
Heck yeah.
Because it's a really
Love
important,
it.
vital piece, I think, to this conversation, is getting their perspective.
Oh, and let us know. That's a big thing. If you guys are either a youth yourself, or you know somebody that has had
Yes.
experiences with this that would want to be on here to have this discussion, or discussions more
Yeah.
rather, let us know and reach out to us so that we can get all that scheduled, because we'd love to have you on.
Yeah, or if you're available September 28th and
have
would
to
like
come.
would
Is
like
that-
to
is
be
that-
on our, that's the date.
Okay.
If you'd like to be on our youth panel, let us know. We're
Yeah.
looking for diverse youth who are comfortable about talking about their mental
Beautiful.
health. We had an amazing 6-person youth panel. It was very diverse. Every one of them said that their mental health struggles started in elementary school. Every one of them. It was really interesting.
See, and that was a big shock to me, because we've had some discussions
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blew my mind. It totally makes sense, right? I mean, that's when
Yeah.
we start the programming.
Yeah.
But
Listen,
blew
we
my
thought
mind.
we thought our sweet spot was going to be middle school and high school. It's not. It's 4th through 6th grade.
Yep.
Is where the conversations really need to start.
That's the prevention piece, right?
That is
Once
the
you get to
prevention
the
piece.
middle school, but definitely high school level, you're more in intervention at
That's
that
right.
point. You're past the prevention. And
Right.
so we
Right.
need to start at that elementary level
Yeah.
for that prevention
Well,
piece.
it's
Exactly.
prepare versus repair.
Yep.
Right. Which
Exactly.
one's
That's
always
right.
better?
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we're doing with the Mental Health Matters Arizona Coalition is we have created a website. I urge everybody to go to the website, mentalhealthmattersarizona.com.
Great.
And check it out and give us feedback. Let us know. It talks about, insurance. What's a super bill? How do I advocate for myself? What are the levels of care? What's a PHP? What's an IOP? What's a,
All
because
the acronyms, all
again,
the
when
other
you're
stuff that we
drinking
just
from a
haven't-
fire hose, people are like, well, do you need an RTS or do you want a PHP? Are you looking for, I'm like,
what are you
I
talking
just
about?
need help.
And there's so many complex nuances
Yes,
to
there
that
are.
when you're not in crisis. And then when you're in crisis, forget it. You're really not functioning
Right.
at that level to be able to understand all that. So there's a lot of
Yes.
nuances.
Yes.
So I think that's great that you guys have that information.
We're trying to make it a one-stop shop for all things mental health Arizona so that we're not going to a million different websites trying to get conflicting information. It's really for the people who just don't know anything.
Yeah.
Where do I start? And so that's what we're trying to develop with that.
Nice.
I think on the education piece, I think so much, so much of stigma is rooted in the lack of knowledge.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's like it's scary.
Yes.
But if you can identify it, give it a name,
Yes.
and then understand it, then all of a sudden stigma goes out the door. It's like, oh, well, I actually understand what's going on.
Right.
So now instead of just identifying the problem, we can now identify solutions to then move forward.
Exactly. And I'm learning that the adult piece is where we really need to be shattering the stigma.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Adults really need to feel comfortable talking to their youth. They need to feel comfortable knowing how to talk to their youth, creating the stigma-free environment at home.
Yeah.
That safe place.
Yeah.
Well, because as parents, we grew up in a little different time. And I always say that I think the generational gap between previous generations and now is greater than it's ever been. Like
Yes.
my parents, the way they grew up was still somewhat similar to the way I grew up. The difference the gap wasn't as large, where now I think it is much larger.
It is.
In that we didn't talk about those things when we were younger. It was more of that mentality of like, toughen up, get over it, you'll be okay. Like it was more of that, you just get through it. You just
Suck
do
it up,
it.
buttercup.
You suck it
Suck
up, buttercup.
Well, and we're just coming off, pre-COVID, we were coming off that, positivity,
Jeez, yeah.
that whole positivity culture, right?
Yeah.
Be positive, be happy, be, And it's easier said than done. And when
Yeah.
you're the one who's not happy, you're thinking there's something wrong with me. We're all supposed to be happy. Why am I not happy? I have nothing to be sad about. Why am I sad?
Yeah. And it's like there is definitely something to be said about having a positive attitude
Yeah.
and like finding
Yeah.
the silver lining. That's great. But there's more to it than that.
And both are true, right? This is the dialectic piece
Yeah.
right there.
Exactly.
And
Yes, and as opposed to
That's
or,
right.
right?
Right.
Which
Right.
which I think is great. So it's like I think a lot of times people will either just totally throw out one or the other by thinking that it's opposing views, right?
And we know youth have a lot of that, right? Black
Yeah.
and white mentality.
Right.
It's all or nothing.
Right.
And learning that both can exist at the same time. I mean, we've learned that, right? Grief and
Yeah.
joy can coexist. It's a
100%.
lesson. It's a lesson. But
Yeah.
we've come to be able to recognize that. And I
Yeah.
think that it's really important to know that both can exist and do exist.
Yes.
And will for the rest of our
right,
lives.
Yeah.
right. We will. The good news is we will never. We won't always be sad, and we
Right.
won't always be happy. Like meaning, so if you're feeling sad, this is ultimately a temporary emotion. All emotions are temporary, and we're going to
Absolutely.
flow through all of them, and we can feel happiness and sadness at the same time. Believe it or not, we can. I felt like that on Mother's Day. I loved the fact
Yes.
that I was spending the
Oh,
day with my
man.
kids, and it was so awesome. And I was missing that piece of my heart as well, my
right.
other kid. Those both coexisted in the same day. So that's life. They can
Yes.
coexist, and we need to teach more of that. Not so much extremes.
Yeah.
Right.
I
And-
dwell in my sadness, or I'm way positive all the time.
Right.
No, we got to find that middle ground.
And to be able to talk about it and be able to
Yeah.
give yourself kindness and grace.
yeah,
Love that.
And let yourself feel what you feel, but know how to take care of it and know what to do about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's really the message.
That's great.
So what do you feel like parents need to know, or what can parents do to better support their youth in all of this? Because I think as parents, we are doing the best we know how. And
Yes,
I
we
give
are.
parents, just as much as we're talking about this grace for ourselves, I mean, I give parents so much grace in
Oh,
that.
yeah.
But what do we think, what can parents do to better support their youth? Where do you think we're missing?
I
Yeah.
think that parents need to, first of all, model the behavior
Ooh,
that they
starts
want to
with them.
see, right?
Yep.
And so I'll just give you an example. A few weeks ago, my now 30-year-old son was over and struggling with something, and I think we might have even talked about
Yeah.
this. We were watching TV, and I was doing something, and I said, find something to watch. And he goes, why can't you find something to watch? And I could have turned around and said, hey, don't talk to me like that.
Right.
But I said, hey, Jacob, what's going on? Because it was a different behavior. And he said later on that he didn't really realize it, but he sort of escalated like that because he wanted me to ask.
Say yeah.
Right?
Ooh.
There's a reason behind every behavior.
Exactly.
Ooh,
And
that's big.
so take a beat. Just take a beat before you react. Because it's very easy as parents, and let me tell you, having 3 kids at home, like, dogs barking, this is going on, and, it's very easy to be like, oh my gosh, what? Do you
React on emotion.
Yeah. Or it's that whole like stop acronym,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
stop,
Take a breath.
observe,
Yeah.
and then proceed.
Proceed mindfully.
Right. It's
That's
like
right.
the same thing. Like,
And it takes practice.
Right.
And you have to give yourself some
yeah.
grace because you're not going to be perfect
it's
all
a,
the
it's a
time.
muscle for sure.
It's a muscle, but practice that.
Yes.
And watch the behaviors change,
Right.
right? So, parents will ask me, how do I stop bullying in my house? And I say, how do you respond to your children, when they're escalating? Do you match their energy, or are you trying to bring it down so that they match your energy? And it takes practice, it takes skill. It's not, parents
Yeah.
also, again, have to give themselves grace because,
Big time.
but it's changing the narrative, right? It's changing the mindset.
Yes. If we're yelling in our home, do you expect our kids to not be yelling? No,
Exactly.
they're going to be matching that.
Right.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you blaming? Are you taking accountability when you've overstepped or when,
Yeah.
model the behavior?
Do you apologize to your kids when you've
right.
done wrong, just like they need to apologize to you when they've done wrong?
Right.
And I
It's
think
all
that,
of those things.
and that can be hard to do for anybody, right?
Oh,
Because
yes.
it's the humility piece. But it's like
Yes.
I whenever we talk about something like this, I always get this voice in my mind. I can't remember who it was, but I remember them saying something to the effect of, "Oh no, a parent should never apologize to their children. Show that strength, show the whatever." And I'm just like, "Oh my gosh." That's
Yeah, no.
not strength. You know, like you don't
No.
realize the damage that you're doing. You know,
Exactly.
people are not. We're more nuanced, and so we have to
Absolutely.
be
Yeah.
treated as such.
And I think the other thing too that parents need to know is that hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
We've heard that on this podcast.
That's
before.
right. And so remember that, right?
Yeah.
When your child is acting out,
Why are they acting out?
why are they acting out? Why are they dysregulated? You know, nobody wants to live like that.
Get to the why behind
Get
the
to the
behavior.
why.
And I teach kids and teens the same thing.
Right.
I say, okay, your parents are reacting this way. Why do you think they're reacting that way?
Right.
Again, we're not justifying anything here. We're not justifying the yelling behavior or whatever it is, but we're just saying let's look at the why, and maybe that gives us a different perspective where we're able then to be like, oh, I have grace for that. You know, and maybe
Exactly.
it doesn't have the same hold on us anymore. Like my mom just yells all the time and is mean. No, why does mom
Right.
yell? Wow, mom's hurt. Mom has some stuff she hasn't dealt with. When we can see it from different perspectives, that changes everything too.
Absolutely. And then them knowing, you know, who's my other trusted adult? Like, who can I talk to about this? Is it my therapist? You know, is it a teacher at school? Is it an aunt or an uncle? Like, how can I process what's going on
Yeah.
with a trusted adult in my life?
Right. Right.
Knowing that they're not alone, and you know, it's okay to feel these feelings. It's okay to experience them. It's about how do we take care of them? How do we move forward?
Yeah. One of my the songs I get a favorite song and then I listen to it on repeat over and over. I don't know if you guys do that too, but like one of them I really like right now is it's by Imagine Dragons. It's okay to be not okay. Right. I love it. You guys should look it up if you haven't heard it.
Totally,
Like,
I'm gonna listen to it on the way
I was
home.
gonna say, yeah, definitely. It's super fun and it's catchy, but it's like, oh yeah, like I like playing this with, I like playing this while my kids are around so we can sing along to it. I wanted to kind of go back to the whole like being able to feel sad and being able to feel happy at the same time. One of the exercises that I have used with my kids, so we talked about how many kids I have. I have 6 kids under 10.
Oh,
Right, bless his heart.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Bless my wife's
He
heart.
needs
Really.
a lot of the STOP acronym.
Yes, I
Take
think
a
so.
breath.
There's a lot of breathing that has to go on in my house.
Under 10.
Yeah, so it's
twins? Any of them twins?
No.
What?
I know, my poor wife. And then there's me, the 7th one is set.
right.
Seventh child.
But one of the exercises that I ended up playing with my kids, it started out as just the positivity thing. Like, well, we keep talking about things that they didn't like during the day, and I was just a little fed up. I was like, can you just let's come up with an activity and make it fun for them.
Yeah.
What's something that made you feel happy? And we kind of went through that, and that was good. And I highly recommend starting there. But then it started becoming this thing of, well, what's a time or something where you felt sad and happy, or mad and happy, or mad and sad. And so we call it an emotion
love
game.
that.
And so it gamifies that and has
Yes.
since helped them identify some of those emotions. So it's so funny. My kids, they take me to school all the time. I'm like, wow, these are like really emotionally healthy kids. One time I'd lost my temper, right? As one does.
Imagine.
Right, imagine.
What? You never.
Come on.
Yeah, with 6 kids, you might be surprised by that. But I went to my boy and I was like, hey, buddy, I'm really sorry. I flew off the handle like that. And he just kind of goes like this. He goes, well, that's something that you're working on.
Amazing.
And it was just like, oh
Called
my
out.
gosh. Like it was, but it was so
Amazing.
great though. And it's like, I really can't take a lot of credit for that, but something that has helped with generating that knowledge of, oh, well, we all have things to work on.
Right.
We all, that game has helped us to be able to create that safe space where we can say, well, hey, if we make a mistake, then we can own it and we can
Right.
apologize, and then we can move forward with it. I just think it's
Exactly.
great.
So awesome.
Exactly. And one of the things that I tell my kids is once we process it, we don't have to ever talk about it again.
Great, yeah.
So we're not going to throw it in your face.
You deal with
We're
it and then you move on.
Another thing I learned from a friend who's actually on our board, she does what was the best, what was the worst, and what'd you learn?
Yeah.
Ooh, I love that.
Oh,
That's a good one, too.
So if you can't get your child to talk, how was school? How was today?
That's a very general question.
That's right.
Yeah.
What was the best thing about today? What was the worst thing about today? And what'd you learn?
Love
That's
that. I
great.
like the what you learn part. So I've heard of like
Oh,
what was
yeah.
your rose and what was your thorn.
Yep.
Another little.
Yes.
But I like the what did you learn part.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing, because that teaches the resiliency part of like,
Right.
okay, I can have good things, I can have hard things, and then what's the lesson in this? It's a big part of
Absolutely.
life.
Well, one of the little sheets, you guys can't see it here, but like just in the back here is about the growth mindset.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So it's like life happens, right? Stuff's going to come at you all the time, but you can either stay where you're at, which really who wants to do that,
Yeah.
right? Like who wants to stay angry or upset or
Right.
not be able to handle
Yeah,
things?
nobody
when they come
wants
your
to feel that way.
No.
Or there's the growth mindset, right? Carol Dweck, I don't know if you guys have read the book Mindset.
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's where that comes from. The growth mindset, the fixed mindset. And she's
Okay, I mean, I know about the
PhD.
growth and fixed mindset, but I haven't
Yeah,
read the
but
book.
I hadn't read the book.
So if you
gonna be
have you
on
ever
my
heard of
list
the,
now.
Have you ever heard of the book Grit by Angela
Yes,
Duckworth?
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay. Angela Duckworth references Carol Dweck. Like that's where she's like
Wow.
referencing that book. Carol Dweck, amazing book. Mindset, look it
Okay.
up. She goes through sports and work and all these other different things. But the whole right, you guys know about the growth mindset,
Right.
where you can take something. My ADD brain, that's like super long way for me to get back around to the
It's
point.
okay. We're following.
Where the growth mindset is you can take what happens to you, and instead of blaming somebody else,
Right.
or just going, well, that's just how I am, or whatever, you can internalize it, process it,
Yep.
and then go, okay, well, what is to be learned?
Right.
How can I be different, the
Yes.
next time?
Yep.
And grace is a big part of that.
It is.
Because instead of, not dealing with it because it hurts, being able to pay attention to why it hurts, and then go, okay, well, what do we do to move forward
Yep.
so that the next time something happens, you're just that much better at dealing with it.
Exactly. It's the building blocks, right?
Yeah.
Big
It's
time.
the foundation, one thing on top of the next, until you become stronger and stronger, and you can stand on your own, and then you can pass it off to other people, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Again, it's that community culture. It's that penny pledge. It's that being there for ourselves and others.
Love that.
Because that's like trauma is a generational thing, right?
Oh,
when we have
yes.
something go, and it's the same with any of these behaviors that we're talking about, or these tools.
Yes.
When we learn to then do it, to then pass that on instead
Right.
of these broken pieces that we've been dealt, then that's what gets passed on.
Right.
which
And
I
that's
think
why
is
we
great.
say, model the behavior that
Yeah.
you want to see, because that's the best way, right? To get
Yes.
back what you're putting out there.
Beautiful. So just kind of as we land the plane here, what can we all do to help Kid in the Corner? Where do we go? The website,
right, so the
social
web-
media.
Yep.
Where do we go to?
So the website is kidinthecorner.org.
Okay.
We're on Facebook, Kid in the Corner, Instagram, LinkedIn,
Great.
and TikTok. We hired a youth
Nice.
intern.
Oh, beautiful.
This year because we don't feel like we can message to kids. We're not kids,
Right.
So we hired an intern,
Love that.
and she launched our TikTok. So that's amazing.
Great.
And then if you're an educator, if you have a youth group, Boys and Girls Club, anything like that, and you want programming, there is a school request form. Our programming is always free. So we do a
Awesome.
lot of work to fundraise. We write a lot of grants. So we never charge a school. So that's really important to know. And then check out mentalhealthmattersarizona.com. You'll find out all kinds of things about the conference coming up and how to register for that. Again, it's free, completely free. And come learn about all the great resources that we have here in Arizona to support youth.
Love it.
Awesome. So really quickly, your curriculum. I don't think we said this. Is it for 4th through 12th grade?
Through 12th.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Yep. 4th through 6th is a 3-day program, and that's because it's really the first time these kids are really talking about
Right.
it, learning about it. There's activities, and they're engaged, right? They'll answer questions, and we sort of sit in a circle. Once you get to middle school, no one's raising their hands anymore.
Yes.
And so it's really a 1-hour sort of informational program
Gotcha.
in middle school and high school.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Great.
Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, Francine, I love what you're doing.
Thank
of course,
you.
it's near and dear to my heart, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing, because I think, as you said, you referenced that it takes a village.
It does.
And bridging the divides, right? And this is why we have people on, is so that we all know that we're not alone.
That's right.
And we're here to support one another. And so, yeah, thank you so much.
Well,
for
and
coming
thank you
on.
guys.
Really.
I love what you're doing. I love the purpose of this podcast.
Yeah.
And I think that, we're only as strong as all the links in the chain, right?
Exactly.
We all have a place to be a link, but we need to come together so that we can really make an impact on youth mental health in Arizona.
Yeah.
100%. No. And again, just to echo Lindsay's sentiments, absolutely love what you're doing, because for me, I was very fortunate. I know you guys both have loved ones that unfortunately were not as fortunate. I was fortunate enough to get caught before I had made any lasting action.
Thank goodness.
I know, and that's how I feel, because of the love of the people around me and the resources that I had. But it was scary,
Yep.
and a lot of it kind of came down to trying to navigate all of that and find where I could get the help that I needed, which again is why we are both so passionate about
Yeah.
this, and why we can clearly see,
Yes.
you know, the passion that you have for this. So again, thank you so much. And if you guys have gotten value from this, please like, subscribe, share, all of those different things. You know, I know it's like every YouTuber, you know, whatever says like, subscribe, comment, and everything, but really that is how everything.
No, but really do it.
But yeah, but really do it, because that is how people. I mean, that's
That's
how
right.
these videos get recommended to other people. That's how
We
you know
bridge the gaps.
we bridge the gaps.
That's
We
right.
bridge the divides, right? Like that. The whole purpose of our thing here. So there are resources, guys. I know that it can feel helpless and you could feel alone and
Yeah.
it's scary. I know that. We all know that.
But we're here to help. We are here.
Amen.
Please lean on us, reach out to us.
Yeah.
You know, if we don't have the resource you need, we'll find it for you.
Yep, absolutely. So comment, like, subscribe, please. We love you, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks.